Welcome everyone. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. Alarm is ringing in the revered town of Joshimath. Massive cracks have emerged in over 600 buildings with as many as 60 families now relocated to safer areas. Joshimath, which is the gateway to famous pilgrimage sites like Badrinath and Hemkund Sahib and the international skiing destination of Oli, is sinking. It is sinking under the weight of high density of population and countless buildings that have cropped up in an unplanned manner in this structurally sensitive area. Large-scale development and infrastructure projects have also seemingly hastened the breakup of the fragile land. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a telephonic conversation with Uttarakhand Chief Minister Dham to take stock of the extent of the damage. Meanwhile, Joshimath has been declared a landslide subsidence zone. Land subsidence is a gradual settling or sudden sinking of the Earth's surface owing to subsurface movement of Earth's materials. One team of NDRF and 4 teams of the SDRF are already in the town, while the NDMA visited today. The state government will pay 4,000 rupees per month for up to 6 months to those who want to move to rented accommodations. Despite decades of warnings, why has the situation come to this? How many more disasters will it take for us to truly learn? Are we as a people not equally to blame for constructions in areas that are clearly fragile? And can we truly reclaim our holy sites and mountains and save them from this congestion? We'll take these questions to our guests and experts joining us in just a bit. Frankly, it's not rocket science and not difficult to imagine why a hilly area is sensitive. But let me break down the exact particular reasons behind Joshimath's land sinking. So why is Joshimath so vulnerable? First of all, actually Joshimath, this entire area is built upon weak soil. This is mostly debris of previous landslides. On top of that, Joshimath is also a highly seismic zone. It is earthquake prone and it has had some over the years. There's then been unplanned construction. There's a heavy population pressure. You can see the amount of built up in this mountain area that has of course increased multifold over the last few decades itself. It is a tourism spot that has grown clearly more than its capacity. Multiple small areas of tourist interest have cropped up. Clearly, it cannot cater to that many people or to that many businesses. Again, on top of that, what has also happened is that this natural water flow in these hilly areas, because of the rivers and tributaries, etc., has been obstructed over the years because of this unplanned construction and bad planning. On top of that, there are hydel power projects that have come up. These also need extensive construction. These are never really great for any ecologically sensitive area, even though they are of course a requirement that we sometimes have to go for. On top of that, there are other development activities including tunnels and widening of roads and infrastructure that has been pushed over the last few years, and now there will be a big question mark on whether the town can truly take any of this. Reports over the years, in fact, decades have been giving a warning of exactly this, that Joshimath will sink unless something is done, or rather, what is being done is stopped. Let me trace these reports for you. Take a look at the 1976 MC Mishra committee report and its recommendations. Even at that time, this is nearly 50 years ago, it had advised restrictions on heavy construction work, blasting or digging, especially to do that construction. It had advised a massive campaign to plant trees and grass. We all know the significance of vegetation or greenery, especially plant and tree cover when it comes to hilly areas or anywhere in the world. Then it had also said that a construction of a pakka drain system should be done and sewage water flow should be managed. This is one of the fundamental issues facing Joshimath today. Then in 2006, which is also almost 2 decades ago, Wadia Institute report on Joshimath had also highlighted the water drainage issue. It had said, and I quote, "The drainage system of the town of Joshimath is not well maintained. Wastewater from the day's usage flows through improper drains." And this has, of course, resulted because of bad planning, no oversight of planning, and people just going on and constructing either their businesses or their houses. Last year, Multiple studies were done. Here is what the State Disaster Management Panel mandated report had said itself. First, it blamed the sinking on numerous homes, resorts and small hotels that have mushroomed. It also again blamed the poor drainage, sewage and surface runoff disposal of water and erosion by rivers. But you can't do anything about the rivers, of course, you need them to flow as far as their route is concerned. On top of that, this report had gone on to make several suggestions as well. It suggested management of seepage and pore pressure of water and improving the drainage, a suggestion that has been made for several decades. It suggested mid last year, that all construction in certain places that are close to drains must be stopped. That has been done now. If necessary, it had said at that time that people must be evacuated to safer places. Again, this is something that has been done now. The Uttarakhand State Disaster Management Authority had released a strategic plan for risk reduction in 2018. So look at this image, which maps the local vulnerability of the area surrounding both Joshimath and Badrinath. It clearly shows these two areas. This is Joshimath, the red dot, and this is Badrinath, which leads up to the holy shrine. So it clearly shows that these two holy towns are highly vulnerable. They are prone to 3 natural calamities: earthquakes, landslides and flash floods. But if you look at the kind of built-up area both these centers have, the amount of congestion they have, the buildings that have come up, they're not even earthquake resistant. And then they have become the 2 big population centers. So all of this population in the red zone that you see is actually very, very vulnerable, highly at risk. So it was always a bad idea to have so many people in this area. So after the latest alarm this month, what action has been taken? Take a look. The first and most important step, as I mentioned, residents have been evacuated from vulnerable zones. Expert teams are now surveying and marking the houses. Several teams are in fact conducting their studies to help the state government. 4 zones in Joshimath have been declared unsafe. 8 hotels have been turned into makeshift shelters. There are other arrangements also that the government has made for those who have been evacuated. The plan on prevention and mitigation of disaster is being readied. The NDMA and the NIDM, which is a Disaster Management Institute, have been mandated to help design prefabricated houses for the residents. Eventually, they will have to live somewhere. Whether they come back to this area or not, frankly, we are not sure. The PMO, as I mentioned, also held a high-level meeting. The Prime Minister has assured all help to the State Chief Minister. The big debate that's coming up today, it's clear that over decades and decades, scientists and experts have been warning us of Joshimath sinking. Can we now truly save our mountains? And our mountains also have some of our most holy sites. Can we come together to do so? That's a big debate.
This is also the visual that we are showing you from outside one of the hotel at the start of the Joshimath town. Clearly you can see that these are huge cracks.
अभी डेंजर जोन और बफर जोन की सर्वे चल रही है और सर्वे आ जाएगा तो कितने मकान में प्रभावित परिवार कितने हैं, रेजिडेंशियल कितने, कमर्शियल कितने, ये सब डिटेल्स इकट्ठा कर रहे हैं।
दीवारों से पानी आ रहा, पीछे मकान के पीछे भी दुनिया भर का पानी है। ये आप देखो, ये पूरा गीला है, पानी आता है। आज तो मतलब बारिश आएगी तो ये पूरा ही नीचे चले जाएगा।
हमने सभी लोगों से अनुरोध किया है कि ये समय सबको मिलजुल कर जोशीमठ को बचाने का समय है। सब लोग एक टीम के रूप में काम करें।
बिना विशेषज्ञों की सलाह लिए, बिना स्थानीय लोगों को विश्वास में लिए इस तरह की तमाम परियोजनाओं को आपको अभी रोकना पड़ेगा।
This isn't really a story of political blame game, although some will erupt. But this is something that we as a country, as a people, have to come together to do. Because frankly, what's happening in Joshimath is not just Joshimath's story. There are other ecologically sensitive areas in the mountains, especially other holy sites. that just cannot take the pressure anymore. And this is a story virtually all around Uttarakhand that suffers natural calamities, even in states like Himachal and Jammu and Kashmir. I want to go across to the guests who are joining us. Dr. Devendra Bhasin is BJP spokesperson. Dolly Sharma of the Congress will be joining us. Professor YP Sundaryal, who's head of Department Geology, HNB Garhwal University. And I'm joined by Madhvi, who's one of the residents, Dr. Kalachand Sen, who's director of the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology. But I want to go across to Madhvi ji first up. सबसे पहले तो आप ये बताइए कि जब से इन बिल्डिंग्स में ये दरारें आई हैं, आपकी लाइफ में क्या बदलाव आया है? बहुत सारे लोगों को अपनी जगह से हटाना भी पड़ा है, तो क्या तकलीफें आ रही हैं?
देखो, दरारें आने के बाद लाइफ कहाँ है? हम तो रात को सो नहीं पा रहे हैं, दिन को भूख नहीं है, तो लाइफ तो खत्म हो गई है। अपना आशियाना उजड़ करके कहाँ चैन से रहेंगे? हम तो बैठे हुए हैं बाहर, अब रात को दूसरी जगह जा रहे हैं सोने को। प्रशासन के आदेश हैं, वो भी जानमाल की सुरक्षा कर रहे हैं अपनी ड्यूटी। क्या होता है, घर उजड़ गया तो अब कहाँ ढूंढेंगे नया घोंसला कहीं।
बट आप मुझे ये बता सकते हैं कि आप वहां पे कब से रह रहे हैं और पिछले कुछ सालों में कितनी बार ऐसी सिचुएशन आई है? अब की बार आपको क्या लगता है ये इतनी ज्यादा गंभीर सिचुएशन क्यों है?
तो आपदा तो 2-3 बार आ गई है, लेकिन ऐसी नहीं आई थी कि घर उजड़ने की नौबत आए। अभी ऋषिगंगा का आया था 21 में, तो कोई वो फ्लड आया था जिससे उससे भी सारे वो हो गया, गांव तबाह हो गया, कितनी मौतें हुई। लेकिन इसमें ये है कि ये जनहानि नहीं है। प्रशासन जाग गया, लोग जागरूक हो गए हैं, प्रशासन की भी अपना काम कर रहे हैं, हम भी अपना काम कर रहे हैं। अब देखो कितना अभी तो बारिश नहीं है, यहाँ पे मौसम अच्छा है। एक बारिश के आने के बाद कितनी तबाही मस्ती है, वो अलग बात है कि कब क्या होता है। पर ये है कि खतरे के उस पे बैठे हुए हैं हम लोग। ये जोशीमठ शहर बहुत कुछ उजड़ चुका है और शायद उजड़ने की कगार पे है। जैसे वैज्ञानिक अब टीवी के माध्यम से हम भी सुन रहे हैं कि 70% यहाँ पे खतरा है।
तो आपको क्या लगता है कि जितनी आबादी यहाँ पे है वो क्या यहाँ वापस आ पाएगी अगर घर दोबारा से बन भी पाते हैं? क्योंकि खतरा बहुत ज्यादा है और रहेगा, और आबादी से भी खतरा है। तो सरकार अगर आपको कहीं और घर बनाने की जगह दे देती है या कोई और अरेंजमेंट कर देती है, तो आप वहां जाना पसंद करेंगे या वापस आना पसंद करेंगे?
देखो, ये तो हमारा है, घर है, तो हमारे यहाँ पे केवल मकान ही नहीं है, हमारे खेत हैं, जमीन और भी है, हमारा रोजगार यहाँ पे। तब सरकार क्या करती है, ये तो बातचीत से पता चलेगा कि क्या नीति बना रही है। पीएमओ के उसमें है, वो क्या नीति बनाते हैं। वो अगर रोजगार कहीं पे मिलता है बच्चों को तो करेंगे, ऐसे कोई नहीं है। और यहीं पे अगर वो इस स्थान को बहुत खतरनाक है तो यहाँ पे नहीं आके दूसरी जगह पे कहीं पे होगा, तो हमें तो सेटल होना है ना। कहाँ जाएंगे बच्चे, हम कहाँ जाएंगे? कोई हमारे साथ इतने बुजुर्ग हैं, करीब 70 साल के मेरे जिठानी है, 80 साल के जेठ हैं, क्या है उनका, कहाँ जाएंगे? वो अब मकान बनाने की स्थिति में नहीं है, लेकिन उनके लिए कोई व्यवस्था होनी चाहिए। जो बच्चे हैं 40 साल 38 साल उनकी उम्र हो गई है, वो पर्यटन होटल था, दुकानें थी, अब वो खत्म हो गया, तो वो क्या करेंगे? रहने के वो नहीं है कि हम रहेंगे कहाँ। रहने के बहुत आशियाने हैं, सारे लोग कह रहे हैं इधर आओ इधर आओ, लेकिन समस्या है कि 2 महीने 4 महीने के बाद क्या होगा, रोजगार का क्या होगा। बिल्कुल, ये बहुत सारी समस्याएं, अब तो शुरुआत हो रही है।
मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहती थी कि अभी तक सरकार ने आपकी क्या मदद की है, कैसे देखभाल हो रही है आपकी?
नहीं, वैसे प्रशासन से हम ये नहीं कहते कि वो अभी हमें मकान बना के दे या कुछ करे हमारी व्यवस्था, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा आप सुरक्षित स्थान पे अगर खुद जा सकते हैं तो आप जाइए, हम वहाँ 4000 रुपये उनको किराया देंगे, या जहाँ पर हमारे द्वारा होटल एक्वायर किए गए हैं आप वहाँ पर आइए, गुरुद्वारा है, नगर पालिका है, एक कमरे वहाँ पे दे रहे हैं कि आप आइए। उन्होंने शायद खाना भी बन रहा है, और प्रत्येक परिवार जो प्रभावित है 5000 रुपये का चेक आज के तहसील से दे के गए हैं कि आप फिलहाल अपने प्राथमिक भोजन की व्यवस्था कर सकते हैं। तो ठीक है, प्रशासन अपना काम कर रहा है, वो ठीक है, लेकिन जो लंबे उसकी वो है कि कल क्या होगा, आज की तो नहीं है। आज प्रशासन दे रहा है, अच्छी बात है, नहीं भी तो इतना तो हमारे अपने लोग हैं, ये हम तो घर गांव के लोग हैं ना, सारे अपने हैं। ऐसे नहीं कि हमें खाना नहीं मिल रही है, रहने की जगह नहीं है, अभी सब कुछ है, लेकिन कब तक चलेगा? हम कब तक किसी पे डिपेंड रहेंगे? कुछ ना कुछ तो योजना होनी चाहिए, और हम पूर्ण रूप से यहाँ से तभी उठेंगे जब सरकार हमसे वार्ता करके, आज पता चल रहा पेपर में आया था कि उन्होंने कुछ होटल डिसमेंटल के वो हो गए हैं, ये टेंडर हो गए हैं, तो ऐसे तो हम मकान तोड़ने नहीं देंगे। उठेंगे तभी जब हमारे साथ सरकार का पूरा एक समझौता होगा कि वो क्या चाहते हैं हमारे लिए। हम क्या चाहते हैं वो अलग बात है, लेकिन वो हमारे लिए क्या चाहते हैं, इतनी लाख वो है प्रॉपर्टी है, उसका क्या है, ये सारी बातें मिल बैठ के होंगी। अभी तो खैर प्राइमरी स्टेज है, वो भी अपना काम करे, कितना करेंगे प्रशासन भी, जितना हो रहा है दौड़ भाग हो ही रहा है। हम इससे वो नहीं है कि कुछ नहीं हो रहा, बहुत कुछ कर रहे हैं। वो इतनी जगह दौड़ना, इतनी लोगों की बातें सुनना, उनकी व्यवस्था करना बहुत बड़ी जवाबदारी है। चाहे वो डीएम चमोली हो, कमिश्नर गढ़वाल, जो भी है वो अपना काम कर रहे हैं। एनडीआरएफ यहाँ पे, एसडीआरएफ यहाँ पे, पुलिस है, पूरा तहसील प्रशासन है, जिला प्रशासन है, स्वास्थ्य विभाग है, कोई कमी नहीं है। लेकिन उस चीज की आज की नहीं है, ये 4 महीने तक की नहीं है, लॉन्ग पीरियड वार्ता कि हम जाएंगे कहाँ, रहने की जगह कहाँ है और रोजगार क्या है। मेन रोजगार है। रोजगार मिलेगा तो रहने का भी बना लेंगे, जैसे बनाया लोगों ने। पर रोजगार की मैं तो सोचती हूँ वो मुख्य वो है।
एब्सोल्युटली, आप सही कह रही हैं। जो रोजगार का इशू है वो ही सबसे ज्यादा
समस्या नहीं है। हमारे साथ और लोग भी है कि उनके क्या होगा, मतलब बच्चों का भविष्य क्या है, ये है। अब देखो क्या होता है आगे।
बिल्कुल, रोजगार तो कुछ और ऑल्टरनेटिव मिलना जरूरी है, अदरवाइज लोग कैसे अपनी जिंदगी कहीं और खड़ी करेंगे। फाइनली माधवी जी, ये भी बताइए कि आप बहुत टाइम से वहां रह रहे हो, आप अपनी पूरी जिंदगी वहां रहे हो, यहाँ पे बहुत अनप्लान्ड कंस्ट्रक्शन हुआ है, आपने भी देखा होगा पिछले सालों में कितना कंस्ट्रक्शन बढ़ गया है, कितनी आबादी बढ़ गई है, तो उसको कंट्रोल करना बहुत जरूरी है।
अनप्लान तो है, मतलब ठीक है, यहाँ पे होटल है, पर्यटन पे लोगों का वो है, रोजगार निर्भर वही है एकमात्र, पर्यटन होटल भी बनते हैं, लेकिन नीति नहीं है ना। अगर मैं 4 मंजिला मकान बना रही हूँ तो रोकना चाहिए मेरे कहने से। ये मैं यहाँ पे चेयरमैन थी, ऐसा कोई नहीं, मेरे कहने से तो कोई नहीं रोका। शासन की अगर गाइडलाइन हो कि 2nd फ्लोर से ऊपर नहीं बनेगा तो नहीं बनेगा, उसको भी तो रोका नहीं जा रहा है। जंगल अनियंत्रित जंगल कट गए हैं, तो कैसे वो कटाव रुकेगा। बहुत सारे ड्रेनेज की व्यवस्था नहीं है, इतनी कहीं 1100 आबादी का ये शहर था, आज 25-30 हजार पे पहुंच गया। कहीं सीवर की व्यवस्था नहीं है, ड्रेनेज की व्यवस्था नहीं है। जब सन 76 से यहाँ पे ये था कि भूस्खलन की जद में ये शहर है, तो आपने पावर प्रोजेक्ट बनाने को यहाँ पे शुरू कर दिया, नीचे बाईपास सड़क कट रही है, तो सारा अनियंत्रित विकास हो, विनाश हो। अब जहाँ जहाँ से रेल आ रही है नीचे रिश्के से, वहाँ पहाड़ दरक रहे हैं, तो इस विकास का हम क्या करेंगे। जो हमारे जीवन पे आधारित वो है, मौत एक प्रकार से विकास नहीं, हमें पहाड़ों को खत्म करने का वो है। आप देखिए ऑल वेदर रोड कट रही है, कहाँ उनके डंपिंग जोन बना रहे हैं और कहाँ नदियां भर गई हैं, इसको देखने वाला कौन है। हम ये कह रहे हैं ना, और रोड बननी चाहिए, लेकिन वो मटेरियल कहाँ फेंक रहे हैं, नदियों का बहाव क्या हो गया, ये देखना भी तो मॉनिटरिंग कमेटी है कि नमामि गंगे प्रोजेक्ट है। अरे उस नमामि गंगे है, लेकिन कहाँ से, बद्रीनाथ जी में तो सीधे होटल है, सीवर वो है। तो ये ऐसा नहीं है, मॉनिटरिंग होनी चाहिए कि अगर हम काम करते हैं तो उस पर देख रेख बहुत जरूरी है, और ये सरकार करेगी भाई, और आपके और मेरे उससे तो नहीं होगा ना। मैं मीडिया का बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूँ, अगर मीडिया ऐसी नहीं होती तो शायद हमारी आवाज कोई नहीं सुनता। इस चीज की मैं शुक्रगुजार हूँ कि आज हर आदमी जागरूक है और मीडिया के माध्यम से सरकार जागरूक हुई और ये पीएमओ का वो बन गया है। एक प्रकार से उन्होंने अपने अंडर ले लिया है। धन्यवाद आप लोगों का, जो आप हम तक आए, बहुत बहुत वो हम शुक्रगुजार हैं आपके।
जी जी, माधवी जी, हमसे बात करने के लिए बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं ये डिस्कशन अब अपने बाकी गेस्ट के साथ आगे ले जाना चाहती हूँ। आई वांट टू कैरी दिस फॉरवर्ड टू आवर अदर गेस्ट आल्सो जॉइनिंग अस। फंडामेंटली डॉक्टर भसीन, द प्रॉब्लम इज द सेम. I mean, it is of unplanned construction, population expansion, which the area just cannot tolerate. Now, Madhvi ji said something very interesting, that when this construction is happening, why is there no one to stop it on the ground? This is a massive failure, and I'm not saying this is one government's failure or another government's failure. This is a story of all towns and all cities, even the metros in the country. But when it is ecologically sensitive, it results in catastrophic disasters. So when this was happening, why was there not enough care taken on the ground that the town cannot stand on this?
In fact, it is a very serious issue, and Joshimath disaster has attracted the attention of Honorable Prime Minister, and he has put this issue on his top priority. Similarly, state government is doing its bit, and on all bases, on all fronts, our Chief Minister is working. I would like to update certain new data which we have received here a few minutes back, that 603 buildings have been identified, cracks, and 68 families have been shifted from their danger zone. Similarly, Char and People Koti area is being identified for the rehabilitation. Moreover, 2 hotels have been closed, and as well as 48 families have been given rupees 5,000 for their daily necessity, grocery or something else. Government is looking all aspects, temporary, immediate and long term. Because the Madhviji raised certain issues, and I do agree with you as well as with Madhviji. Because 4 reports were submitted. The first one was in the years 1976, other was in 2006, the third one was 213, and fourth one few months back.
Yeah,
but
last year.
Unfortunately, no one took these reports seriously, and the result is before us.
No, but
Now,
why not?
PMO,
Why not? Before I go across to our Congress representatives also, currently BJP is in power and has been for a few years. It's just come back to power. Why did the BJP government not pay heed to what was happening? Is it just the fact that the governments just don't have the will to uproot people, because then that creates its own issues? People obviously don't want to move. There is no plan on how to rehabilitate them, how to get them more jobs or different livelihoods. What's the reason?
that first 3 reports were submitted during the period of Congress, and they did nothing. And all these haphazard construction, majority of them were constructed during that tenure. Yes, I do agree. The 4th reports came during our period, and our government is working on those lines. And we are looking for this immediate relief as well as for the long-term.
So can I just
measures.
understand from you, Madhviji said that apparently the government plans to bring down certain structures. Is that the plan? Are you going to bring down certain structures, and are you going to bring people back to this area or move them somewhere else? That's the most important issue right now.
Important point is this, that the buildings having cracks and may damage other buildings will be demolished.
Okay.
We do not want toe erosion. Today, Chief Secretary of Uttarakhand, he ordered his officers to identify these buildings who may tomorrow create more damage to other buildings. So these buildings would be demolished. Moreover, the people would be provided certain shelters on temporary basis, and for long-term planning, government is working. And government is also going to increase the relief money to the people. So government is not working for the immediate purpose.
Okay, fair enough. I'll come back to you to understand. I'll go to our experts also, but let me bring in Dolly Sharma of the Congress party also. As Mr. Bhasin is saying, it may be right that currently this crisis is playing out under the BJP government, but you know, I don't think any political party between the BJP and the Congress can shirk blame on what has transpired in Joshimath. Majority of this construction and this population has come up in Joshimath under your nose, so as to say. Dolly.
Madam, actually, only thing BJP knows is to blame Congress for everything possible. They are in power from such long, and now again they are blaming Congress. It's okay. I understand their plight because, you know, I understand what is happening in Joshimath is disastrous. And at this point in time, if they are blaming Congress rather than taking proper measures to help the needy, the people who are living in Joshimath, it is biting cold, madam, and people of Joshimath are nowhere. They have no homes to live in, and still they are blaming Congress.
No, they have been provided temporarily structures. Let's not say that they have nowhere to go.
See,
the government is doing what it can right now, but fundamentally, Dolly ji, what I want to understand from you, is it also not a failure, collective failure of governments after governments, and this is not the story of Joshimath alone. You look at anywhere in India, there is no planned development.
हम तो इनसे कहते हैं कि 3 चीजें कर दीजिए,
इस
त्रासदी को नेशनल डिजास्टर आप डिक्लेयर कर दीजिए, दूसरा रेलवे और जो भी हाइडल के पावर के प्रोजेक्ट्स वहां चल रही हैं, परियोजनाएं, उनको वहां पर तब तक रोक देना चाहिए, डिस्कशन करना चाहिए विशेषज्ञों से, वैज्ञानिकों से, पर्यावरणविदों से और स्थानीय लोगों की कमेटी। जब तक ये डिसीजन ना आ जाए, जब तक सारी चीजें इसमें ना आ जाए, तब तक ये प्रोजेक्ट्स बंद कर देने चाहिए। तीसरा, जितने भी जोशीमठ में विस्थापित तो को सिर्फ 5,000 देने की बजाय उनको उक्त मुआवजा देना चाहिए, पीएम केयर फंड से देना चाहिए। अभी मैडम यहाँ पर मैं सुन रही थी, जोशीमठ से हमारी एक महिला बहन बोल रही थी, वो कह रही थी अभी तक तो सब मिल रहा है, लेकिन आगे का भविष्य क्या? तो उनके भविष्य के बारे में सोचकर उन पर विचार कर उन पर निर्णय लेकर आगे बढ़ना चाहिए। रादर कांग्रेस को ब्लेम करें, इसको ब्लेम करें। आप सरकार में है, जो मुख्य धारा के काम है वो करना चाहिए।
वो तो अभी कर रहे हैं, अब आगे जाके क्या होगा उसका तो मैं सवाल। एक सेकंड रुक जाइए, आपने जो सवाल पूछा, एक सेकंड डॉली जी प्लीज डोंट टॉक अनइंटरप्टेड। आपने जो सवाल पूछा है उनका जवाब दे दीजिए भसीन जिनको। आई हैव टू गो टू माय अदर गेस्ट आल्सो। यस मिस्टर भसीन, what is your long term commitment to the people? That's what the resident also was wondering about.
Basically, the human factor is very important. We have to give them, provide them the shelters, houses. Moreover, we will have to provide them rozgar, employment.
Alternate livelihood, yes.
Yes. That is top priority because People Koti area and Gauchar area are plain area. We are going to have a survey in those areas and we'll finalize where we will shift those families who will be evacuated from Joshimath. So we have long-term planning before us, we have short-term issues before us, and government is addressing both the things.
Okay. Fundamentally, I want to understand whether people can really come back to this fragile ecosystem, or we have to accept the reality that we cannot have so many people in these areas to begin with.
One point more.
Yes.
One point more, that all constructions work have been stopped there.
Yes, I know. I already mentioned it. You're saying that in response to the Congress spokesperson, but I've mentioned it at the start of my show. I want to go across to Dr. Kalachand also, who's joining us. He's from the Wadia Institute. You know, what we know are the reasons behind what is happening in Joshimath, frankly, are not particular to this area alone. That's every city's issue in India. Population increase, unplanned development. The land here is extremely fragile, so it creates massive issues. But I want to understand from you, since you've been looking at this issue for very long, why do you think governments have been unable to act here?
You see that problem is coming from different fronts. It's not from the one side of the government, one side of the contractor, one side of the ditto following the report. Actually, whenever any project gets sanctioned, as per our knowledge goes, it is based on the recommendations, suggestions given by, and you are very much correct, 1976 report is a long back report. And that time population was not that much. That time the developmental activities, the way people are utilizing the Joshimath as a gateway was not that much very intense. It has been intensified during the last few decades. And that could have been taken care. But I exactly cannot point out where that it has gone wrong. But definitely something has gone wrong and we are paying for that now. But now we at this stage, we need to post-mortem all of them and it should not incur further. We have to take a strong rule, regulations, etc. to safeguard the people living into the hilly town, living into the hilly stations like Joshimath, etc.
Yeah. Professor YP Sundaryal, I'm coming to you. You know, the rules and regulations exist in India. We've got enough expert panels, enough committees, you know, enough agencies looking at these situations, and yet on the ground, everybody knows, each individual knows what's happening is wrong. I think collectively as a people, we have to be more sincere to what we're doing and not just blame quote unquote Sarkar or Prashasan, because everything is not coming from them alone. I want to understand from you that is it time that on the back of what is transpiring in Joshimath, it's time for us to understand that there are several other places in our hilly states, Uttarakhand, Himachal, even let's say Jammu and Kashmir. We have to be more careful and we have to come together along with the administration, the government and the public, that we have to do something. We cannot have this. These areas cannot sustain like this.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
मेरी आवाज आ रही है आप तक?
आ रही है आवाज, आप बोलिए.
हेलो हेलो
सर आपकी आवाज आ रही है, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है, तो आप बोलिए, आपने मेरा सवाल सुना है तो।
हाँ, मैंने सुन लिया। मेरी आवाज आ रही है आप तक ना?
जी सर आ रही है, आप अपनी बात रखिए अब।
ओके। Actually, it is totally failure of the governance. I'm not blaming the present government, but when the Mishra Commission, in the different channels, people are discussing that the Mishra recommendation was not implemented, and government, it is duty of the government that they should not allow multi-story building. All are aware that this region is tectonically very active, and population pressure and the unplanned construction, when you will allow at such fragile region, then this will happen. Number one. Number two, the surface on which this Joshimath is located is a paleo landslide. And when we use the term paleo landslide, it is nothing but a massive landslide took place long back. And the hard rock is about 800, 900 meter below of that surface. And you don't have any proper drainage system there. 22,000, 25,000 people are residing in the Joshimath. They have their house, they are using water. Where the water will percolate down, then what will happen? The fine material will sink down. When the fine material will sink down, the big boulders and the structure which has been made over that surface, that will get crack or that will tilt and that will damage. This is a very simple, but government should frame some building code, and all are aware that this entire Uttarakhand region falls under earthquake zone 5 and 4. If you are aware of that, then till now, till this date, why the government has not framed some strict rule for the construction of the...
I want to understand from you, as far as these zones are concerned, there are already guidelines. Are you saying that there are no guidelines, or are the guidelines not being implemented on ground?
Are not being followed.
Not being followed.
Government is not serious about
But that's
those
the story,
guidelines.
no, everywhere. That story exists everywhere. You look at Delhi only. How many unauthorized colonies does Delhi have? And how many unauthorized floors have been built in Delhi? But here it doesn't cause that kind of a damage. There the ecological basis is so fragile.
Geology and geography is entirely different of Delhi and Bombay and Himalaya.
No, what I'm saying, sir, the fundamental social issue is the same. That we don't follow guidelines. Our system is weak to enforce those guidelines. And this just keeps happening under our noses, under the nose of several governments. And then one day we wake up. But the question I want to ask you is, once again, is that fundamentally we have to tell people and the local administration that this cannot go on like this. From Joshimath, let's take that example and save other mountain hilly areas as well, because most of them are under pressure.
Yes, certainly. And I have also mentioned that Gopeshwar is also maybe the next hot spot. Your Guptakasi may be the next hot spot. Because for all these yatra routes, the small town is being converted in a big city, like a big city, without any planning. And as a human or as a teacher, I cannot stop that.
Yeah.
Government will have to take its responsibility.
Yeah, and even if that decision is hard in the short term or in the present term, it has to be taken. There will be some suffering. I'm not denying that. It's not like we don't want it to be done in a humane way. But Mr. Basir, I want to bring you in very quickly. You know, ultimately, these towns cannot cater to that many people. That's the problem. And in the name of tourism, in the name of livelihood, in the name of economy, we cannot do this.
Today, our Chief Minister has declared that they will survey the carrying capacity of these areas. Because Himalaya is a very young mountain. And this episode of Joshimath is an alarm for the entire Himalayan range. So, we will have to learn something from Joshimath And as far as the present disaster is concerned, we government is planning and working on those lines to provide immediate relief to the victims and long-term measures from them.
Dolly ji, ultimately we all have to come together, right? Our local administrations, our governments, state governments, politicians, political parties and the public, everybody has to come together because this is no one person's doing. Ultimately, we have to understand this, the fragility of the ecological system and our desires. I'm sorry to say, human desires cannot do this to our mountains.
Of course. This is actually a high seismic zone wherein you can't be constructing 4 floors of a building, wherein that, it can be disastrous. It cannot take this much of, people or this much. The capacity of this area is not this much. It can handle 3-4 stories of buildings. We have to handle them very carefully, and we have to all, actually I agree with you, we have to all come together for such a thing, so that such incidents should not repeat, and all the development work should be taken care of with the experts. We cannot continue such works without the experts' advice. So we have to take the advices of experts continuously on regular basis. This should also be done.
Because what then happens is that ultimately it leads to natural disasters where more livelihood, more property and more lives are then lost. We know everything that has happened in Uttarakhand over the last 20 years alone. I want to bring in Dr. Kalachand into the discussion once again. Fundamentally, as I've been saying, Dr. Sen, that these areas just cannot handle that many people in these zones. The vulnerability is that high, and then the vulnerability to flash floods, landslides, earthquakes, as I mentioned. So the population density needs to be brought down. That's fundamental. You can do something now as a band-aid, but in the future this can happen again.
Actually, that's what I'm telling. When it will be replanted, we have to follow certain guidelines of the hill stations of the city or town into the hilly area. So for population density, what type of structural materials has to be used, that also is a matter of concern. The cement and bricks material utilization is another factor. But if you construct your houses or buildings using some sort of bamboos, using some sort of woods, that sustainability will be much more, but you cannot have many floors. So there should be some sort of curtailment into the building, curtailment into the population, curtailment into the different other activities, whatever going on into this area.
Okay, Dr. Bhasin, I'll give you a final word. There is a lot of pressure on the government now that it has woken up, I'm sorry to say and use those terms. But now that it is aware of the problem, it has taken the decision of moving so many people, some short-term, mid-term, long-term strategies being made. Now the onus is on the government to ensure that whatever is the solution required is done. There is no more dilly-dallying on this.
Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji is monitoring the entire work being done in Joshimath, and Chief Minister Mr. Dham is also online 24/7. So what I feel that as far as the human angle is concerned, they are being addressed properly. Moreover, now the expert team from the center has arrived, and certain things would be finalized in near future, and especially guidelines for the entire Himalayan range or especially in Uttarakhand. So I think that tomorrow we will find certain guidelines with the help of central government, and it is good that PMO is monitoring each and every.
So what's the future of some of these large-scale development projects in this area, as the Congress representative was also asking? You've stopped it for now, but what's the future of those development projects?
In fact, this will depend on the report of the experts, because NTPC is saying they are not responsible, but there are a few other people who are saying that NTPC is responsible. So we cannot decide because we are laymen. So let us wait for the report of the experts, and government will decide the fate of these projects, what to do.
Okay, Professor Sundaryal, your final comment on what you think needs to be done, both in the short term and in the long term, to ensure that we can save Joshimath.
Okay, government should frame some rules and regulation for the construction, and that rule and regulations should be implemented honestly. It is We have seen in the Kedarnath disaster that the geologists identified the vulnerable area, and at that time they made a recommendation that these places should not occupied by the construction. And after in 2018-19, all those danger area they have allowed construction of the building again. So such type of the things are not good. That's why I told you that it is totally failure of the governance.
Okay. Fundamentally, we have to change the way how rules and guidelines are enforced in such areas, and it's an issue everywhere, but in such sensitive areas, it has to be taken more sensitively. I thank all of our guests for joining us. We'll slip into a very short break. On the other side, we've got more of the Nataka in Karnataka coming up for you.